The bone elephant only took a few steps before it gave up chasing Lu Hui. It turned around and fixed its gaze back on the devil's shelter. It was starting to look like something was attracting it there. Han Sen frowned. Although Devil's Shelter had nothing to do with him, the shelter was home to millions of people. Han Sen was a human and he didn't want to see his own kind slain mercilessly. Lu Hui's body was shining blue. He kept on attacking the bone elephant with the lance in his hand. But despite his attempts, the creature continued to ignore him and simply became more and more red. Lei Hangwu and his people did their best to attack it, just as Lu Hui did. It was all to no avail, however, as it now seemed that nothing could divert its attention away from the shelter. But that being said, such attacks really were like tickles, when accounting for the size and might of the beast. The bone elephant's speed had definitely increased now. The body was like a small mountain, running past on its own legs. The riders and their mounts that couldn't get out of the way in time were squashed beneath its feet. Puddles and streams of blood formed, and human allies were reduced to mush. Evacuate the shelter. Have everyone exit there at once, Lu Hui calmly decreed. If they did not give up the shelter now, countless people would fall victim to the elephant, and the place would be lost. By having the place evacuated, at least the fatalities incurred would be far fewer upon the shelter's destruction. Anything that was in the elephant's path was stomped and crushed into dust. Even the ancient trees that were in its way were brought down with the littlest of difficulty. This behavior even applied to boulders and craggy outcrops that were in its way. The earth shook with each step of the berserk elephant. It did not slow down on its approach, and just as it had rampaged down the mountains, it seemed to be charging headlong into the walls. Big dumb elephant. I am the 13th general of the goddess army, Wang Yuhang. Your attempt to destroy this stronghold of prosperity will not succeed. As the tusks of the elephant almost shattered the gate, just as the final flicker of hope seemed to extinguish, a man appeared in the sky. He flapped his wings with great speed, shouting at the berserk bone elephant like a god. The unstoppable berserk elephant heard his voice and stopped dead in its tracks. Big dumb elephant. My bossman will not allow you to bring harm to the good civilians that populate this place. If your balls are as hardy as your bones, follow me to the goddess army so that we can bury you in the grave you have so happily dug for yourself. Wang Yuhang shouted at the bone elephant at the top of his lungs, then he flapped his wings and flew away. The berserk elephant trumpeted to the sky and followed Wang Yuhang. No one could believe what they had seen, and they weren't even sure what was happening anymore. The man seemed to be able to contact the fearsome creature, the same creature that had ignored every other human. The fact that it so effortlessly followed the man after his speech was unbelievable. Lu Hui and Lei Hangwu were surprised. They knew exactly what they had just seen, and they knew Wang Yuhang was taking advantage of his profound unluckiness. They knew such a thing was possible, but they were mostly surprised by the fact that he had chosen to put his life on the line in an attempt to save Devil's Shelter. Holy crap, this man is Opus. This goddess army must be some angelic force, it sounds so powerful. They are gods. They rock. The goddess army must be a supergiant army. If a general had that much power, I wonder what the leader of such an army must be like. Did you skip the part where he said he was only the 13th general? That means there are 12 others who are beyond him in power. The leader must be strong enough to tear the skies asunder. Then, Wang Yuhang, I will remember this man. The goddess shelter saved our lives. Han Sen lent his berserk sacred blood wings to Wang Yuhang so he could distract the berserk bone elephant and lead it away. He did not expect him to have so much flair, however, and his boisterous act in the skies above the shelter seemed so genuine. People who did not understand what was truly going on would believe the bone elephant actually listened to what he had to say. But the truth was that the berserk bone elephant was only chasing the man due to his terrible luck. Han Sen and Zero went ahead first, thinking that the berserk bone elephant wasn't actually heading for Devil's Shelter. The shelter just happened to be in its way. So, Han Sen made Wang Yuhang lead the bone elephant around Devil's Shelter. The beast could not fly, so there was no immediate danger, and as soon as Wang Yuhang was done, he could return to Han Sen and allow it to go where it would. The elephant followed Wang Yuhang away from Devil's Shelter for about 50 miles, then he took off further into the sky. The berserk bone elephant continued running forward, not paying any attention to Devil's Shelter. Bossman, your berserk sacred blood wings are wondrous. Would it be against your desire if I requested that you lend them to me for a few days? Wang Yuhang asked, with a big smile upon his face. Don't talk crap. Give me them back at once. And can I ask what kind of BS drivel you were spouting back there? Han Sen took back his sacred blood wings as he asked. I was raising awareness of the goddess shelter. A deed like this will garner us much renown, and you'll have people crawling over each other in a bid to be enlisted. Wang Yuan laughed. And what is up with the 13th general nonsense? Han Sen asked. Think about it. If people heard this, they'd assume we have swaths of elites in our ranks, enough so that we need at least 13 generals to manage them all. And if I was the 13th, then people would naturally assume there were 12 others who were even stronger than me. We would become the bee's knees, Wang Yuheng explained, with a proud and boisterous expression smeared across his face. Han Sen was not sure how to respond, but he ultimately believed it to be a good thing. If the goddess shelter were to become more well-known, then inviting elites into the ranks of its army would be considerably easier. Han Sen wanted to see where the berserk bone elephant was going, so he followed its shadow from a good distance. Little uncle, do you know which area lies ahead? Han Sen asked Wang Yuheng, as he watched the bone elephant go further and further in a direction he wasn't familiar with. Let me think. Wang Yuheng looked ahead and then, with a quick discoloration of his face, said, I think this leads to the haunted peach forest. What is the haunted peach forest? Han Sen asked. It is a peach forest. The peach trees there are massive, each one being at least 100 meters tall. You can barely see the tops of such trees, and humans who go there tend to get lost with the greatest of ease. Furthermore, countless frightening monsters lurk beneath its boughs and many who enter there do not return. After a while, Wang Yuheng lowered his head in thought. Then, he said, fortunately, this is the season of the peach flowers opening. It isn't the season of peach production, so it shouldn't be too dangerous. Why is that? Han Sen looked confused. During the season for peaches, many powerful creatures visit there for a taste. That would also be the most dangerous time to even think about approaching the haunted peach forest, Wang Yuheng explained. But now it is the flower opening season, correct? If the elephant was hungry for peaches, why would he be heading there now? Han Sen furrowed his brows. The berserk bone elephant did not care for anything in its way, and it continued to beeline straight for the forests. As it approached the eaves of the tall boughs, however, it slowed down. It didn't blusterously stomp its way through the forest as it had on its way there. It tiptoed gently and lightly around the trees, venturing as quietly as it could, as if to avoid waking up a sleeping beauty. The berserk bone elephant's red hue started to rescind and go lighter, which surprised Han Sen and Wang Yuheng. Never before had they seen a creature revert back from a berserk state. It looks like the bone elephant didn't truly become berserk. It must be some sort of ability that it possesses, Han Sen said, as he pondered the curious trait. I suppose you are correct. Should we enter? At the edge of the forest, Wang Yuheng looked in, but did not dare take a step forward. How about this, little uncle? You return to the shelter and wait for us. We will take a look. Han Sen was worried something might happen if Wang Yuheng accompanied him. Sure, Wang Yuheng quickly agreed. He turned and took off running to Devil's Shelter without looking back. Han Sen thought it odd, as he'd never seen him demonstrate such haste before. Having thought about it some more, Han Sen understood. Earlier, Wang Yuheng appeared before everyone in Devil's Shelter as a glorious savior of the people. Now, he was eager to finish the show. Han Sen wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. Wang Mingmeng's little uncle was a legendarily strange man, with no equal in the entire world. Do you want to go back and wait for me, too? Han Sen looked at Zero, who didn't say much. She just stepped closer to Han Sen, signifying she was keen to continue. Han Sen, without saying anything more, walked into the peach forest with Zero by his side. Han Sen constantly looked around, but he only saw trees and flowers for as far as his sight could reach. There didn't seem to be anything inherently special about the peach forest, from what he could tell. They hadn't seen a single other creature on their way, either. Even with the silver fox by their side, they should have still been able to see some, or notice signs of them having been in the area. The entire time, since they first entered the forest, the elephant was the only creature they had found. Han Sen activated his gene lock every now and again, using his senses to assess the surroundings and analyze whether or not there were any dangers in the vicinity. Despite his best attempts, there was nothing. The silver fox could not discover anything, either. Quietly, it continued to lie in Zero's arms. The moon was in the sky, and under the moonlight, the ocean of peach flowers looked even more beautiful. When a breeze danced between the trees, it rustled the flowers as petals submitted themselves to the pull of the wind. As gorgeous as it was, the entire affair seemed somewhat surreal. Han Sen and Zero both sat upon Golden Roar. As she sat graciously between the rain of flowers and petals, Zero's pretty face graced the view as a mesmerizingly beautiful image. Han Sen could not help but pick up one of the flowers and place it in her hair. Now she was perfect. Now you are even prettier. Han Sen looked at Zero, who almost seemed to be one with the flowers. He was not sure whether her beauty was accentuated by the flower, or if the beauty of the flowers were accentuated by her presence. Zero, who had always appeared emotionless, started to look red in the cheeks. This made her even prettier, like some fairy that lived amidst the peach flower trees. The bone elephant, by this point, had been wandering through the forest for a few days now. Just when Han Sen started to feel lost in the seemingly endless peach forest, he suddenly saw a giant peach tree up ahead. The trunk of the tree was bigger than the rest, leading upwards into the heavens. The flowers that graced and decorated its body spread out at the top like stars in the sky. The bone elephant seemed to be heading towards that tree. What is this strangely big peach tree? Han Sen observed the peach tree from afar and couldn't believe its size. He did not sense any danger, and neither did the silver fox. All the silver fox did was stare at the peach tree, and all Han Sen could do was wonder what it was thinking about. Since they were here already, Han Sen wanted to see what the elephant wanted. Han Sen followed the elephant but stayed a safe distance away from it, not daring to get too close. The giant bone elephant was heading straight for the perplexingly huge peach tree. As it approached, the massive elephant didn't look so big anymore. The elephant walked beneath the boughs of the tree gently and knelt. Then, it kowtowed before the tree, lowering its head as if it was praying before it. Han Sen was frozen. He did not believe that a super creature like this, a monstrous elephant no less, would pray in front of a tree. It was unbelievable. What is this strange peach tree? Does something more powerful than a super creature even exist? Why would the elephant adore the tree and show so much respect? Han Sen was puzzled. He watched the bone elephant kowtow before the tree for a very long time. But what happened next was even more unnerving. Under the moonlight, the bone elephant sat beside the tree in a human pose. With all the flowers flying around it, it appeared to be meditating. With the forest lit with the moonlight, and the flowers and petals continuing to skate the breeze, the bone elephant's body started to resemble the flowers from the peach tree. Then, it started glowing. The gray and white bones now looked like jade crystals, which seemed to exude a holy light of some sort. Even the red eyes of the elephant seemed to fade away, and it didn't seem as if it wanted to kill anything anymore. The whole bone elephant was like a sacred Buddha beneath the peach tree, with a halo of divine light coming from it. What is going on here? The longer Han Sen watched, the more confused he became. The bone elephant continued to sit beneath the tree without moving. A while later, Han Sen heard a noise come from deeper within the peach forest, a sound that seemed to be coming their way. It wasn't long before it appeared. It was a small pink snake, slithering towards the giant peach tree. Quietly, it rested against the base of it. A blue tiger appeared from another direction and also sat down near the tree. Wings could be heard flapping in the sky, and looking up, a red-crowned crane was descending to the ground near the tree to join in with the other creatures. And soon after that, a black bear arrived, carrying a cub. It also sat down near the bottom of the tree. In a short amount of time, many creatures had gathered at the base of the tree. Han Sen was shocked at what he was seeing, particularly so due to how special and unique they all looked. He thought they might all have been super creatures. Han Sen did not know why they were there. Was something from the peach tree attracting them? During Han Sen's confusion, the silver fox jumped out of Zero's arms and trotted over to the big tree, too. Han Sen was perplexed. He thought that the peach tree might have been emitting a pheromone to attract the creatures towards it. After taking a few steps forward, the silver fox turned around and nodded its head to Han Sen. It looked as if it wanted him to follow. He was hesitant to comply, due to how many powerful creatures gathered up in one place and how dangerous it would be for him to go. Again, the silver fox flicked its head. Although the creatures were now undoubtedly aware of the silver fox's presence, they didn't bother doing anything about it. They hardly even looked its way. For the third time, the silver fox gestured for Han Sen to join it. With gritted teeth, Han Sen slowly withdrew from his shelter and tiptoed his way towards the peach tree. Han Sen went forward as cautiously as he could. The moment he noticed something was off, or if the creatures even looked at him wrong, he'd take off running in the other direction. Zero, to his surprise, was less fearful. With glee, she ran to catch up with the silver fox. They were out in plain sight, before the creatures near the tree, but nothing happened. The creatures simply continued to sit where they were. With his heart playing hopscotch, Han Sen followed the silver fox to the tree. After choosing a spot, they sat down near it. Aside from the bone elephant and the two bears, they were closest in proximity to the actual bark of the tree. 2 meters away from Han Sen was the black bear. Although it was not as big as the bone elephant, it was at least 10 meters tall. Although it was kowtowing, it was like a giant truck, and its breathing was loud. This was the first time he had ever gotten so close with a creature outside of combat. It made Han Sen feel quite wonderful, as not a single creature showed any sign of wanting to attack him. All the creatures here had become animals, fond of peace. No matter the species or breed, they had all come together to kowtow before the tree. The silver fox was lying on the ground that had been dressed in loose flower petals. It closed its eyes and breathed calmly, with a mellow rhythm. It was something Han Sen had seen before. After practicing Dongsu Sutra, he would always see the silver fox in such a fashion for a brief while. The other creatures weren't too different. While they all lay down, they each breathed with a calm, unique rhythm. Does this strange peach tree provide boons and advancements to one's training? Han Sen wondered to himself. After a while, Han Sen decided to try to practice Dongsu Sutra. Han Sen began training and felt as if there was a special energy being absorbed into his body by the Dongsu Sutra. The pace of his Dongsu Sutra sped up, as if it was reacting to the strange energy. This really is something special. Han Sen continued practicing, and eventually his body began to produce a pleasant smell. The scent combined with the fragrance of the peaches and began to permeate the atmosphere. When Han Sen finished a cycle, he noticed that his Dongsu Sutra had improved far more than it usually did. This surprised him, but when Han Sen looked at the other creatures, he was surprised. Perhaps it was because the fragrance combined with the scent of the flowers, but when he saw the silver fox again, he could actually see the energy inside him. He could see the pleasant smell inside the silver fox that had not been refined yet. Han Sen looked at the other creatures and was even more surprised. Many creatures were in the area, and it seemed as if they had all absorbed the pleasant fragrance of the Dongsu Sutra. Strangely, they all seemed to have a different reaction to its absorption. The pleasant scent inside the pink snake, the blue beast, the red-crowned crane, and the big black bear was all blurry, being absorbed by their bodies. But in the cub and the bone elephant, Han Sen saw that the energy was flowing inside them in a rhythmic beat. It looked like a human kai gong. That's not right. The black bear and the cub are of the same kind, so why the difference between the two? Han Sen was shocked while looking at what was going on. Not long after, Han Sen's pleasant fragrance had been refined by the cub and bone elephant. The crane and snake were continuing to refine it slowly, but Han Sen could still sense it inside them. Creatures were usually birthed by their mothers, not their nests. The silver fox, the cub, and the gourd were spawned in their nests, whereas the others had been birthed by their mothers. That made Han Sen think back on the golden roar. He wasn't sure about the big golden roar, but when the small one died, it left behind its life geno essence and body. If the big golden roar and the elephant were birthed by a creature, does that mean the children of super creatures are different than the super creatures themselves? Han Sen theorized. But this train of thought only led to more and more questions. Why did some super creatures only leave their life essence behind and not their actual bodies? If the second or third generation of super creatures could leave their bodies, then there must have been something special inside them. Just like the silver fox and the cub, they were the children of super creatures, and it looked like they had special abilities that were different than their mothers. The peach flowers were opened for 2 weeks. During that time, Han Sen managed to record the energy flow of both the elephant and the cub. When the peach flowers on the trees began to wilt, the silver fox tugged at Han Sen's pants and tried to pull him away from the area. Han Sen felt something was wrong, as well. As the peach flowers began to wilt more and more, the creatures seemed to be getting more and more restless. Han Sen noticed a slight reddish hue beginning to tint the eyes of the bone elephant. It looked as if it would soon resume its murderous rampage. He didn't dare stay any longer, and so he decided to depart with Zero before anything went awry. If the creatures started to go berserk, with his small body, there was no chance he'd be able to withstand an attack dealt by any of them. For the 2 weeks he had been there, Han Sen constantly repeated his practice of the Dongsuan Sutra. His body had been hungry for it the entire time. If the open flowers of the tree have such a remarkable power, if it grew peaches and I ate one, I wonder what would happen. Han Sen decided that when the mystic peach tree grew its harvest of peaches, he would return to this place and collect some, no matter what it took. But Han Sen imagined that when the mystic peach tree did grow its peaches, there would undoubtedly be chaos. Nabbing a few peaches for himself would most likely prove difficult. Back in the Alliance, Han Sen considered choosing a new hyper-geno art that would go well with his flaming Rex spike. Han Sen conducted a lot of research, but found it difficult to select a skill that would suit his needs. The flaming Rex spike was neither greatsword nor lance, and he couldn't even use it like a club. No wonder the shopkeeper sold it to me so cheaply, with a quick cash trade agreement. In the end, Han Sen went to look for Professor Bai Yishan in the Saint Hall. Hold on a second. Bai Yishan went peruse further information. Half an hour later, he returned to his communicator and told Han Sen, "This weapon is very rare. But I do remember one fellow who created a weapon that operates similarly. It may look a little different, yes, but functionally it's the same. It is a single-handed weapon that is most suitable for jabbing or thrusting, and heavy swings. The man created a skill for it, but it wasn't anything exceptional. It was only ranked as a class skill here in the Saint Hall. It was called Toxic Dragon Drill. You should take a look at it if you're interested. Thank you, Professor Bai. Han Sen had no other choice. Being only a class, it was far worse than Han Sen expected. Professor Bai himself had told him that there were no S-class hyper-geno arts that suited it. He suddenly felt the Sea of Soul shaking. The flaming T-Rex burst out, signifying the finishing of the Flaming Rex Spike's evolution. He noticed the flaming T-Rex was living up to its name, as its whole body was wreathed in flame. It looked like a super T-Rex, but the body was blazing with red flames instead of gold flames. Han Sen looked at the flaming T-Rex's introduction and saw the Berserk title. He summoned the Flaming Rex Spike. The creepy, blood-red weapon was now blazing with a red flame. It looked very mighty. The fire of the weapon produced an incredibly intense heat. If it touched someone's body, Han Sen imagined it wouldn't take much effort to instantly roast the skin and flesh. This is a scary weapon. Han Sen gave it a swing and liked how it felt. It seemed as powerful as he had hoped it would be. Now that I have the weapon, I should find a super creature to test it on. Which one should I go for? Han Sen wondered. It was not difficult to find a super creature, though most of them resided in the deepest, most secluded mountain ranges, gullies, or swamps. He'd encounter one in no time if he brought Wang Yuhang along. The primary concern, however, was whether or not he could truly kill such a creature. Han Sen's ideal target would be the Red Cloud Donkey. It seemed as if it would be easier to kill since it didn't pose much of a significant risk. The biggest problem was the raven that lived near it. No matter how strong the Flaming Rex Spike was, it would not matter if Han Sen could not match the speed of such a foe and land a single hit. He was only afraid that before he even had a chance to raise his weapon, the raven would have already sliced his head clean off his shoulders. The target Han Sen wanted to hunt the most was something that was slow and did not have a weak body. Something like the big black bear would have been fine to fight as well. A big-bodied creature would be fine, as the Flaming Rex Spike was most certainly long enough to reach it. If Han Sen did go up against the bear and struck its head with all his might, he only imagined that the creature would be unable to withstand such a blow. But the peach forest was too creepy to return to, and he knew more than one super creature resided below its shadowed boughs. Han Sen did not dare risk returning there, and since he wanted to bring Wang Yuhang with him, he knew they'd be swarmed by super creatures the moment they stepped inside. Leader, Lu Hui is here to see you. Back in the goddess shelter, Young Manly delivered Han Sen a surprise visitor. What is he doing here? There is no way he would come all the way out here to thank us for saving his shelter, would he? Han Sen frowned and invited his guests in to see him. I have come here to thank you for pulling the bone elephant away. There is also a deal I would like to strike with you, if you'd be so kind as to hear what I have to propose. Lu Hui smiled in return. There is no need to thank me, but I can always make room for more business ventures. Han Sen noticed Lu Hui had not brought any gifts with him and was quickly disappointed. We believe we have found a super creature, but our power alone is not enough to kill it. Therefore, I would like to cooperate with the goddess shelter and take on this monster together. Lu Hui did not beat around the bush. What kind of super creature is it? Han Sen's attention had been quickly snared. It is a wolf, Lu Hui answered. What kind of wolf? Han Sen frowned, thinking Lu Hui was being too vague. Lu Hui laughed and said, it is the king of a few 100,000 wolves. We have been unable to detect whether or not it has any elemental powers, but it is powerful, that much we do know. Its strength and speed are exceptional. A few 100,000 wolves. A little dangerous, no. Han Sen frowned again, thinking that was quite the pack for a wolf to lead. If he agreed to lend his aid, it would be no trivial fight. Plus, if he wanted to kill it in the midst of the wolf pack, it'd be much harder. Fighting a super creature that was solo would be a far easier task. It will be a difficult foe to overcome, I must confess. If it wasn't, I wouldn't be requesting your aid. But the Wolf King's body is very balanced. It doesn't seem to have any outstanding attributes. The pelt is not too sturdy, its speed is not too fast, and its strength is nothing obscene. How will we cooperate? Han Sen asked. I want you to help draw away the wolf pack. We can deal with the Wolf King. Afterwards, aside from the beast's soul, the loot will be shared. It was obvious what Lu Hui wanted, Wang Yuhang's ability. Lu Hui had been both shocked and impressed by Wang Yuhang's ability to attract creatures when he saved Devil's Shelter. Sorry, if things are like that then we cannot cooperate, Han Sen firmly rejected. Why? Lu Hui asked. If you want to cooperate with us, then we must be granted the final blow on the super creature. That's how it must be, Han Sen stated coldly. That is a shame. Maybe next time, Lu Hui knew there was no point in pushing the subject further. Lu Hui did not think Han Sen had the ability to kill a super creature. He only wanted Wang Yuheng's ability to attract creatures, but Han Sen's ambitions were too big for him. Escort Lu Hui off the premises, Han Sen commanded Yang Manly. Also, find out where he'll be fighting the Wolf King he speaks of. Han Sen happily ran across the northern fields. Before he went into battle, he wanted to test the power of the flaming Rex spike first. The wolf pack was enormous. After asking around, Han Sen knew where it was currently going. He went straight there, wanting to get to the king before Lu Hui and his people did. Han Sen raced there, running throughout the day and subsequent night. Finally, he arrived. They looked like ordinary gray wolves, but it was their numbers that made their presence so intimidating. To prevent the Wolf King from escaping, Han Sen ran straight to the center of the pack with the silver fox in hand. As expected, the wolves along the way parted and formed a path for Han Sen. None dared to get close. Han Sen walked 100 miles and finally found the Wolf King atop a small hill. It didn't look particularly striking, and it had no remarkable features. It looked almost like an ordinary gray wolf, save for being a bit larger and having a blue mark branding its forehead. There didn't seem to be any elemental attributes to its pelt, either. It's no wonder Lu Hui wants to kill this thing. It looks far too easy. Han Sen summoned his flaming Rex spike, a 2-meter-long lance-like weapon, which he held with one hand. The flames that blazed across it made it look frightening. But before Han Sen approached the Wolf King any closer, it stood up and howled to the sky. "My little gray thing, simmer down. No other wolf will come and save you, no matter how loud you howl." Han Sen looked at the Wolf King howling and laughed. The next second, Han Sen's smile froze in place. A chorus of howls joined in, coming from all around him. He could see the shadows of other wolves inching closer from every direction, and the glare of their hungry eyes watched him intently. Impossible. How can these gray wolves not be afraid of the silver fox's presence? Han Sen was shocked. There were now a few 100,000 wolves snarling at him. There were countless mutant-class wolves and a lot of sacred blood-class wolves. Even if Han Sen stood there, ready to kill them, there were too many and he'd run out of stamina and become too exhausted to continue before being able to slay them all. But Han Sen quickly understood as he looked at the blue symbol on the Wolf King's forehead. The eyes of the other wolves were all starting to turn a menacing shade of blue, and even their fur was beginning to adopt the tint. Rage, cruelty, violence. These words were apt to describe each and every wolf that snarled in Han Sen's direction. The Wolf King was still quietly standing on the hill as it peered down at Han Sen. Around it, a dozen sacred blood-gray wolves formed a circle. Han Sen, without hesitating, summoned his wings and tried to escape. He could kill sacred blood creatures, but his fitness was only a little bit better, which meant they could damage him. Plus, with the wretched number of wolves that were there in support of the Wolf King, even the queen and little uncle wouldn't have been enough assistance, and the chance of victory would still have been slim to none. As Han Sen took off into the skies, the Wolf King began howling upwards, too. The blue light on its forehead shone even brighter, like a beacon. Its gray body began to shine blue now, too. All the wolves began jumping up as high as they could, trying to capture the intruder. These ordinary wolves, though they did not possess wings, could still glide through the air. The wolf pack was like a tsunami, howling as they surfed the air in pursuit of their prey. The flaming Rex spike swept and sent a grand multitude of wolves flying away like shooting stars, alight with fire. Their bodies were burnt black in seconds. Some managed to stand back up and resume their pursuit, uncaring for the flames that continued to ravage their bodies. The gray wolves were like well-trained soldiers. They were using a formation to surround Han Sen, and their precision and cooperative cohesion made him unable to escape the higher-class variants of wolves. He continued for 300 miles. Han Sen thought he was going to drown under the waves of gray wolves when the horde finally began to thin out, and eventually retreated. Just as Han Sen thought he could be spared some respite and recovery, he heard a sound from not too far away. Across the fields in another direction, a stampede of horses came running towards him like the waves of the sea. Above them all, a handsome horse king commanded the skies, flapping its angelic wings as it surveyed the lands around it. Holy smokes, I escaped the territory of the wolves only to end up in the realm of horses. Han Sen was glum as he watched the winged horses, the Pegasus, approach. He wanted to slap himself, thinking, why did I even come here in the first place? I should have stuck to searching for solo super creatures. Trying to take advantage of others will get me killed, Han Sen sighed. Fortunately, there seemed to be a no-man's land between the pack of wolves and the soaring Pegasus. They didn't come his way, which gave him the opportunity to rest for a brief while. Han Sen did not dare fly in the sky. There'd be no advantage up there, considering that Pegasi were flying creatures. He landed on the grass and took a good look around. There was nothing remarkable about the place, as it was just a grassy field. After Han Sen took a closer look, the grass was shorter than elsewhere. Some of the grass was even yellowish in color. It was very different than the fresh, long, green grass that was in the fields to the left and right of the one he currently stood in. Aside from that, there was nothing special. There wasn't even a lake or pond, just a grassy field. The wolves and horses stared at him but kept their distance. They weren't leaving, so Han Sen decided to stay put while he was safe. He didn't think the wolves or horses could be bothered watching him like that for a long time. But quickly, Han Sen realized something was wrong. The horses and wolves really did stay there, taking turns with others in their own groups to watch Han Sen. Luckily, Han Sen had brought many provisions with him, including nutrient solutions. He could remain in this field for 2 months if need be. But even if he did stay where he was for the next 2 months, what was the point? The wolves and horses did not want to leave. 2 weeks passed and they still remained outside the field watching Han Sen, not allowing him to leave. Silver Fox, you're going to have to do something and help me find a way out of this mess. You're not going to wait until I'm dead before you run off, are you? Han Sen put the Silver Fox in front of his face and said, "This is not right. There's not much difference between a fox and a wolf, is there? Can't you go and talk to the Wolf King on my behalf and tell him it was all just a big misunderstanding?" Han Sen put him down and the Silver Fox lay on the ground, blinking at Han Sen. Han Sen felt as if he'd be better off talking with a rock, so he circled the entire field multiple times, evaluating what options there were for escape, but did not discover anything viable. If escaping won't work, then so be it. I'll have to fight my way out. I definitely can't leave through the Pegasi side, as their numbers seem greater than that of the wolves. They can fly, too. That'll surely be the more dangerous way. Han Sen then looked at the wolf side. He observed the wind blowing through the grass, which revealed the gray backs of hidden wolves. Heaven knew how many lurked in the tall grass, waiting for Han Sen. Han Sen could only watch their movements, waiting for the right moment to slice his way through the hordes and make a daring escape. After a while, Han Sen saw the horses in a state of mild unrest. In the group of horses, a red pony appeared. They parted and formed a path for it, not daring to touch it. Is that the child of a super creature? Han Sen took a look and was surprised. The red pony did not seem to have been born very long ago. It looked rather curious, and even the sacred blood class Pegasi avoided its approach. If I kidnap the red pony, could I use it to escape the crowd of horses? Han Sen's heart burst this evil thought, wondering if he could put a knife to the red pony's neck and broker a deal with the Horse King. But Han Sen quickly dropped the idea. Creatures were not humans, and if they saw Han Sen threaten the red pony, they'd probably opt to kill Han Sen rather than negotiate. Although the red pony was small, it was a super creature. Han Sen was not entirely sure he could deal with it solo anyway. The red pony seemed curious about everything. It opened its eyes wide and looked at Han Sen and the Silver Fox with great interest. The red pony tried to enter Han Sen's field on numerous occasions, but each time, the Horse King stopped it and sent it back. Before the red pony was taken away, it looked back and almost seemed upset. That's a shame. If that red pony came here on its own, perhaps I really could kidnap it. Han Sen thought, disappointed. That night, Han Sen lay on the grass observing the night skies. He counted the stars that glistened above. It was quite boring, so he summoned the angel and Princess Yin Yang to talk. As they were talking, they heard noise from the horse crowd. Looking over there, Han Sen saw the red pony sneak his way, with its eyes fixated on him. Han Sen was happy when he saw it, but it caused a commotion in the horse crowd. They neighed repeatedly, as if they were trying to convince the red pony to return to them. But no matter how much noise they made, they did not dare to enter the area like the red pony had. The Horse King was nowhere to be seen, however, and Han Sen did not know why. The red pony ignored its brethren and continued to approach Han Sen. It looked to its left and right up until it was about 20 meters away. Then, it stood where it was and just watched Han Sen and his companions. "Come here, little child. Come here." Han Sen's face was crowned with a strange smile. He reached out both arms to the red pony, as if he was calling for a baby to crawl to him. But the red pony took a few step backs, and its eyes looked alert. It didn't trust Han Sen. Han Sen noticed that his behavior was like any old, creepy uncle that wished to kidnap a child. Quickly, he put away his grinning face and put on his look of innocence as if he were swapping masks. As he did, he thought of how he might be able to attract the red pony towards him. Han Sen threw some jerky on the ground and bid for the pony to eat it, but it was ignored. Do horses only enjoy eating grass? Han Sen's heart felt bad. He looked in his pockets and there was nothing he could use to attract the red pony, so he wasn't sure what to do. But the red pony, after a while longer of looking, seemed to drop some of its apprehension. Slowly, it began to walk closer and closer to Han Sen. The crowd of horses was in a frenzy as countless horses surrounded the area, crying repeatedly. It was like they were pleading for the red pony to return and for Han Sen not to hurt it. Han Sen suddenly thought something had to be wrong. If the wolves and horses were avoiding each other, maybe that was why they did not come any closer. But now that the red pony was inside, why did the other horses not come? The red pony was hesitant to approach at first, but after circling them for some time, it acknowledged there was no danger. After coming to this realization, it was happy to stay in Han Sen's company. Although Han Sen still wanted to kidnap the red pony, he wasn't going to rush things until he was sure it was comfortable. If eyes could kill, Han Sen would have been nothing but bits. But the silver fox looked a little upset. It jumped into Han Sen's lap, gritted its teeth, and growled. The red pony was unnerved by this, which displeased Han Sen. He was afraid that the silver fox would scare off the red pony, so he put it down on the ground. But the red pony was only given a jump scare. After taking a few steps, it looked at the silver fox that continued to growl and stare back at it with hostility. Strangely, it looked happier now. The red pony approached Han Sen and buried its head into Han Sen's chest and rubbed it. This made the silver fox really mad. If Han Sen didn't shut him down now, the red pony would, quite literally, be in for a shock. Han Sen reached out his hand to stroke the mane of the red pony. The pony remained where it was, allowing Han Sen to touch it as much as he wanted. It seemed to enjoy the strokes, but when Han Sen touched it, the Pegasus that continued to watch looked even angrier. The next second, vine-like tentacles pierced through the ground and moved towards Han Sen. The tentacles were extremely fast, but they seemed to mostly go for the red pony. Han Sen reacted and jumped into the sky. The red pony wasn't so lucky. No matter how strong it was, it hadn't been born for a long time and it lacked experience in the world. The vast number of tentacles grabbed it tight. Then, the field of grass split in two, unearthing a giant gully. The tentacles that had writhed around the pony started dragging it towards the pit. The pony began neighing with its lighter, younger tone. Its body shone red just like the ruby light of a police siren. The red light sliced through the vine-like tentacles, which then dropped to the ground spewing green blood. But more and more tentacles appeared, doing their best to choke the pony and drag it towards the hole. Han Sen looked at the pit and could only see red in there. Sharp teeth, lined up like cogwheels, circled its entirety. Han Sen was unable to fathom what manner of wretched creature had been lurking beneath his feet. It's no wonder why neither the wolves nor Pegasus dared approach me, with such a horrible creature lying here. Han Sen saw that the red pony was only moments away from being pulled into the hungry, exposed mouth. He frowned and summoned his flaming Rex spike and began swinging it. The flames burned brightly as the heavy weapon annihilated any tentacle it came into contact with, quickly incinerating them into charcoal. The broken tentacles dropped onto the ground on fire. Soon after, the red pony was free from the monster's grasp. The pony had not yet developed the ability to fly. Since it was still grounded, it looked like it was going to be grabbed again by freshly sprouted tentacles. So Han Sen picked up the red pony and flew off into the sky. The creature that had been lying beneath the ground was so strange. Han Sen was not sure why it seemed to show so much interest in the red pony. Han Sen and the silver fox had barely been given any attention. The subterranean monster seemed to only focus on the pony. Han Sen, with the pony in his arms, began flying away. The unknown monster let out a soul-shriveling roar, which made the ground tremble. Tentacles burst forth from the ground, lifting the entirety of the grass field with it. It was like watching a creature emerge from the most rotten pits of hell. It was a giant worm that looked like a centipede. Only a portion of its body had been revealed, but it was already unimaginably big. Like a train, it was shooting out of a tunnel a few dozen meters into the air. The entirety of its back was hairy and the tentacles had Han Sen and the red pony in their sights. Han Sen let loose the power of his flaming Rex spike and hacked off a grand number of the monster's tentacles with a rage-fueled strike. Flames then shot across the sky. Casting arrow, Han Sen used it to soar through the air and dodge the monster's assault. The Pegasus were also in the sky. They rushed down, all of them neighing in anger. It looked as if they were super keen on protecting their master. Without fear, they rushed down towards the monster that had previously been lurking beneath the earth. The hair on the monster seemed to regenerate. After being shaved, the tentacles started to grow back. Many of the Pegasus that charged into battle found themselves tangled in the brush of tentacles. Many of the winged horses were ripped apart and thrown away, casting blood across the ruined land. The body of the subterranean monster was massive, at least 100 meters long. Its shell was purple and black, and countless little legs wriggled beneath it, each one possessing their own tentacles. A long scream came from afar, signaling the arrival of the Pegasus King. It was cloaked in clouds, evidence of the wrath it brought with it. The Pegasus King's clouds began to spread, falling down on the massive creature below like bombs. They clung to the tentacles, restraining them like glue. Caught within the thick, muculent clouds, the monster could not get its tentacles free. It struggled and thrashed madly, but to no avail. But the monster was too big and its body was extremely strong. After a grand push, it managed to tear the white clouds and continue its pursuit of Han Sen and the red pony. The Pegasus and Pegasus King no longer cared for Han Sen, and they diverted all their attention to the monster. They assaulted its body, tentacles, and legs, biting everything they could with great ferocity. A chilling howl shrieked across the grassy field. At great speed, a gray wolf was dashing towards the scene of the battle. Behind it, the tsunami-like wolf pack followed. The mark on the Wolf King's forehead shone like a beacon once more, which made the other wolves turn blue. Their fur shone with a blue light and their eyes were each like sapphires. It was like a ghostly wolf pack. Han Sen was shocked. He thought the wolf pack had come to attack the Pegasus. But the wolf pack, shrouded in a blue light, leapt into the fray with the monster of the Pegasus' strife and began tearing into its legs. Instead of fighting the Pegasus or causing trouble, they had come to the aid of the Pegasus, helping them in their battle. The Wolf King looked up at the sky and howled again. The blue mark on its forehead was shining brighter than Han Sen had ever seen it. The light veiled many of the Pegasus above, and seemed to buff their abilities, too. The Pegasus appeared stronger and faster, and they fought with greater ferocity. The Pegasus King flapped its wings as white air swirled around it. Like arrows, short streams of white wind rained down on the monster, pegging down its tentacles and legs. The wolf pack and Pegasus attacked the monster without fear, which enraged it. It opened its mouth and swallowed a few horses and wolves. But it was no use, as it only resulted in more and more allies taking their places. The monster's body was covered with wolves and Pegasus, which hindered its mobility. With its agility suffering, the bites of its attackers came more frequently. Although most of the wolves and Pegasus were unable to hurt it, beneath the brutal suppression of their subordinates, the Pegasus King and Wolf King were now free to enter the fight themselves. Han Sen froze as he looked down from the sky. This was the first time he had ever witnessed such a large-scale fight between creatures take place. The fact that two different species were cooperating with each other in such a way was incredible. The fact that the Wolf King's abilities allowed it to buff the Pegasus surprised Han Sen to no end. He thought that the Wolf King was an incredibly special creature. Although the Wolf King's personal power was below average when compared to other adult super creatures, the support skills it had were extremely effective. The wolf pack could not fly, but with the buff, they were able to glide in the air with a power and speed that was almost unrivaled. It was an amazing skill. If I kill the Wolf King, I'll get the Aura Beast soul, won't I? Han Sen wondered. The Pegasus King's power wasn't too far off the Wolf King's, either. Its power was mid-low on a chart of super creature's strength. The white clouds that it fired were like glue, working to restrain the monster. It also dulled the fangs of the monster, as if they had been encased in plastic. This was a very special, very unique power. Han Sen could not be sure which element it was associated with, though. The Wolf King's claws now shredded the shell of the monster, which had it shrieking and trembling in pain. The Pegasus King flew down from the sky, hitting the monster's belly. The horn on its head drilled into the monster's hide and left a deep wound. The monster was now incredibly angry, but under the constant assault of wolves and Pegasus, it couldn't do much. It looks like greater numbers always prevail. If they fought alone, none of them would be able to beat the monster. Going up against the wolf pack and crowd of Pegasus, this wretched monster doesn't stand a chance. Han Sen thought as he observed the battle. The Pegasus King is battling the monster. This is the best time for me to escape, with a pony in tow. Being able to escape and do so with a new super pony friend is a rare opportunity, and in many ways, I'll be hitting two birds with one stone. Han Sen got excited at the prospect, so he turned around and prepared to leave. But as he did so, he discovered that not too far behind him, a group of sacred blood-class Pegasus had been standing there staring at him the entire time. Han Sen immediately gave up his plan of kidnapping the red pony. The Pegasus Horde was far too big for him to compete with. If he really wanted to steal the red pony, it was unlikely he could escape whilst carrying it. It would be inevitable that the king would catch up and swiftly kill him. Han Sen landed a good distance away from the battlefield and put the red pony down. He raised his hands and began to walk away, slowly. The Pegasus immediately swooped down to surround the red pony. Han Sen tried to leave, but there were many more Pegasus blocking his departure. The red pony neighed in Han Sen's direction, which prompted the Pegasus that prevented his departure to move aside and allow him to pass. Han Sen was surprised by this. After today's events, he was well aware that there was far more to a creature's mind than he had previously believed there to be. He understood them a lot more, he felt. He turned around to look at the pony, waved, and then left. The monster was mostly dead by this point. Han Sen was afraid that once the Pegasus King and Wolf King were done, they'd return to finish him off. Therefore, he did not plan on hanging around any more than he had to. The Pegasus crowd was dizzyingly large. There could very well have been 1,000,000 of them. It was no wonder why the monster could only hide underground. The only reason it came out was because of the red pony, which had been left alone. But even that attempt failed, which had the monster swiftly bombarded by the Pegasus and Wolf Horde, leading to a quick death. Han Sen thought Lu Hui's plan to kill the Wolf King was ridiculous. The wolf pack itself was incredibly powerful, but what if the Pegasus Horde had also come to its aid? They'd stand no chance. The Wolf King's buffs were incredibly powerful, strengthening its pack more than anyone could guess. Han Sen did not believe humans could kill the Wolf King for as long as the wolf pack lived. Han Sen heard one final scream erupt from the maw of the wicked subterranean monster, and then silence. After walking for a whole day, Han Sen was finally away from the grassy plainlands. Suddenly, clouds formed in the air around him and a Pegasus flew by, carrying a red pony. The pony's head was lifted high in a look of pride. When Han Sen saw the Pegasus King arrive, the first thing he thought to do was run. He stretched his legs and took off, but it was to no avail. He wasn't half as quick as the Pegasus King, and it caught up in no time at all. It landed in front of him. The red pony leapt off the Pegasus King's back and happily ran up to Han Sen. With its head, it rubbed him as best it could. Then, it spit something out of its mouth onto the ground. Han Sen took a closer look and realized that it was a fist-sized dark purple crystal. The red pony used its head to nudge it closer to Han Sen. "Is that for me?" Han Sen, looking at the crystal, wasn't quite sure what to believe. He never thought something like this would happen to him in this world. Upon looking at it, Han Sen realized that it was a life geno essence. It was most likely from the subterranean monster that the Pegasus and wolves had just killed. The fact that the red pony had brought it to Han Sen was incredible. Han Sen was feeling as if he had accidentally stumbled across a lottery ticket that paid out $5 million. The red pony did not understand what Han Sen had asked it. When he didn't pick it up, the red pony grabbed it with its mouth and spit it into Han Sen's hand. The red pony rubbed Han Sen's leg until the Pegasus King neighed for it to return. Then it did. The red pony leapt back up onto the Pegasus King's back, looked at Han Sen, and made a noise. It must have meant goodbye. The Pegasus King flapped its glorious wings and shot off into the sky, disappearing in but a few seconds. Good things can just spring upon you. I thought my time out here would have been a waste. I couldn't have been more wrong. What a delightful surprise. Han Sen held the dark purple crystal in his hand. There was nothing special about it, and it most certainly wasn't like the life geno essence of the fire scale T-Rex that burnt so hot that no one could even touch it. I should be able to eat this life geno essence, no problem. Han Sen licked it. It did not melt as it had in the first god's sanctuary. However, the dark purple crystal was like a real crystal. It was hard. That's strange. Why can't I eat it? Is this not a life geno essence? Han Sen licked it a few more times, but nothing happened. No matter which way he considered it, it had to be a life geno essence. It looks like if you want to eat a life geno essence in the second god's sanctuary, you've got to do something special. Han Sen did not dare swallow the crystal whole. Clearly, randomly swallowing a crystal wouldn't be the solution. If neither the Pegasus King nor Wolf King wanted it, there had to be something up with the life geno essence. As such, Han Sen didn't dare eat it just yet, on account of his suspicion. Han Sen already had a few guesses, but he wasn't too sure. He'd have to wait a while longer before proving whether or not his ideas were correct. The toxic dragon drill was clearly not strong enough to suit his needs, so he decided to modify it and bring it up to par with an S-class skill. If he did that, it'd be far more useful in his fights against super creatures. The best way to modify a hyper geno art was through combat, so Han Sen used the scanner to scan the flaming Rex spike. Hui Heifeng had been on a roll lately, and he had just taken first place in the military fellowship tournament. Although it was only for the league that used spears, he was still satisfied with the result. Even if it was just a single award, it wasn't something easily obtainable. After entering the arena, Hui Heifeng was taken aback. The weapon his opponent was using was very strange. It was 2-meter long, giant sharp weapon. It looked like a big folder umbrella. The metal folds looked lethal, and the weapon itself was quite scary. What kind of strange weapon is this? It looks like a greatsword and a medieval lance combined, but it looks so much cooler than they could ever look. How do you even use that thing? As a spear elite, he thought the weapon was a little too big as well. It was definitely not a weapon that could be used effectively as a spear, but neither could it be used as a sword. With its cylindrical body, few skills could be cast efficiently with it. The weapon interested Huey Hefeng greatly. He was looking forward to seeing what skills could be performed with such a weapon. Huey Hefeng, who had come here with empty hands, now summoned a big spear. It was 2 meters long and as thick as an arm. Han Sen noticed his opponent was using a champion spear, and at this, he looked happy. This was because the thrusting skill of his flaming Rex spike was derived from that same weapon. Han Sen was wielding the Rex spike, sprinting towards Sea Wind. The Rex spike in his hand began spinning, the opener for Toxic Dragon Drill. Sea Wind lifted his champion spear, knocking up the incoming, spinning Rex spike. Unfortunately for Han Sen, his move wasn't as effective as he had hoped. Because the Rex spike was just a virtual object that the system had scanned, it lacked the real flame and toughness of the original object. The only characteristics that translated over were its weight and shape. The Rex spike should have been heavier than the champion spear. If this hit made the system determine that Han Sen had to take 2 steps back, it meant that his opponent was stronger than he was. This wasn't a ludicrous thing. If he was an evolver, then Sea Wind had a fitness of around 150. But Han Sen was far past that number. His weapon was heavier than his opponent's, and his power and strength exceeded his opponent's as well. Yet, for some reason, he lost the clash and had to fall back. Dong, another collision of blades, and Han Sen was beaten back by the champion's spear again. The system couldn't be incorrect, and there was now no doubt that his opponent was stronger than he was. Sea Wind swung his spear towards Han Sen. Aligning his Rex spike horizontally, he blocked the incoming spear. Huey Hefeng was a little disappointed in his opponent. He thought Han Sen's weapon was something special. But now, he was only using it like a big mutant spear. Aside from the screw attack he had performed, the rest of his performance was subpar. Although Han Sen was being brutally suppressed, he did not panic. His opponent's spear skills were powerful, but Han Sen's fitness was higher. It'd still be extremely difficult for Sea Wind to win. As Han Sen continued to block his attacks, he also analyzed the skills used against him. He wanted to do a deep dive on them all and learn their ins and outs. The powerful spear skills he was witnessing were ideal for a powerful weapon like his own, and if he could learn those skills, perhaps he could modify them to improve Toxic Dragon Drill. He remained like that for a while. Han Sen was eventually able to notice that the reason his opponent's attacks were so strong was because he was using a Hyper Geno art for support. It wasn't purely down to the skills he used. If Han Sen could not watch the flow of his energy, then he'd be unable to learn anything from him. That would be a waste. Huey Hefeng's attacks escalated in their ferocity and strength. He wanted to end the fight out of boredom. The strange weapon Han Sen wielded did not surprise him as he expected it to, so he grew tired of the battle. After fighting for some time, Huey Hefeng's perception began to change. Although Han Sen's fighting skills were ordinary, he had a lot of stamina. Furthermore, his formation was strange and unique. Although Huey Hefeng had an advantage, and was constantly on the offensive, he wasn't any closer to victory than when the fight first began. Interesting. Huey Hefeng raised his lips. A person's strength was not derived solely from their physical attack power, it came from their endurance as well. Under his wild attacks, Han Sen was no longer falling back. Han Sen was blocking to the best of his abilities. Blocking did not cost much, and it was a way to keep the fight going. Huey Hefeng's eyes flickered with a glint of evil as he changed up his moveset. The powerful spear skills from earlier suddenly became soft. The skills were so gentle and elegant, the heavy champion spear suddenly became like a needle in a little girl's hand. Every strike was so small and fast, it was like he was sewing beautiful embroidery on Jiangnan cloth. The toughness and softness had totally changed, without error. He couldn't imagine how a person could use such a big spear with that much grace and finesse. The Rex spike was a blunt heavy weapon, and against those delicate spear skills, he wasn't quite sure what to do. The style was restricting his momentum and the situation had just taken a turn for the worse. Han Sen racked his mind, trying to think of a way he could break the unceasing barrage of attacks, but he couldn't. The spear skills cast against him were too fast for his current lumbering usage of the Rex spike. Further and further, Han Sen was pushed back. He was nearing the wall of the arena, still unable to turn the tides. His health had now dropped below 10 points and he could no longer dodge. For all intents and purposes, the battle was already lost. Huey Haifeng's champion spear then became a blinding flash of light, driven towards Han Sen with a speed that was greater than that of a meteor. Although Huey Haifeng admired Han Sen, if he insisted on sticking to that weapon and not using something else that would draw out his true strength, then Huey Haifeng had no choice but to end things here and now. Han Sen watched the flash of light coming and felt that it was unfair losing a battle like this. It upset him. But he was here for the Rex Spike, and for that, he was not willing to throw in the towel. Not now, not ever. Han Sen did not want to lose the battle like this. If he had already lost, then it didn't matter. Dropping his defense, he lifted up the Rex Spike and swung it towards his opponent's head. Han Sen fueled this strike with all the anger and sadness that had welled up inside him. Even though it was highly likely his opponent would evade it and he'd still end up suffering the final blow. He was going to lose either way, but it was better to go out in a blaze of glory than to wither away. After all, while he was attacking, Han Sen summoned the image of the bone elephant shattering rocks in two. That feeling of being able to break through the opposition with no fear was what Han Sen wanted, most of all. Han Sen, at that moment, wished he was the bone elephant. He wanted to smash Sea Wind into pieces and unleash all his anger. At that decisive moment, Han Sen felt his Dongshuan Sutra kick into action. But the energy wasn't flowing along with Han Sen's body, it was adopting a simulation of the bone elephant's energy flow. Oppress. That was the only word that came to mind when Han Sen mustered the strength of the bone elephant he was going to mimic. It felt as if an elephant was indeed running through his body, and he was being given its strength. The power of the elephant coursed through his veins and was injected into the Rex Spike. Huey Haifeng noticed as Han Sen suddenly abandoned his strained hope for victory and dropped his guard, putting everything he had into one last strike. He knew that it wouldn't hit him. Attempting an attack with such blunt, heavy weaponry was silly. It would be too slow. His champion spear could pierce Han Sen's heart and knock away that last remaining bit of health before the Rex Spike was halfway through its swing. Huey Haifeng was holding his massive champion spear, yet he used it with the delicate precision of a needle. And his opponent's heart was where it was set to poke and weave the bitter tangs of defeat. But just as the tip neared his heart, his face changed. The weapon in Han Sen's hand accelerated. The mighty, heavy weapon split the air, producing a deafening sound as it soared. It made Huey Haifeng feel as if the world was shrinking, as the hideous weapon obscured his vision. In his eyes, its image became bigger and bigger. Huey Haifeng was shocked. He didn't understand how or why his opponent's skills had suddenly become so scary. He clutched the spear with both hands and brought it before the incoming attack. Huey Haifeng was like paper, cruelly smashed in half. 100 HP points were depleted in a single moment, and he was taken out of the arena. Holy sugar, is this guy cheating? How can an evolver possibly possess such power? After Huey Haifeng exited the arena, he was gobsmacked. Han Sen himself was taken aback by the power he had summoned for that attack. He didn't expect to be able to simulate the bone elephant's energy so well, but by doing so, he had been given the power to defeat his opponent in a single, devastating blow. Han Sen was incredibly happy, but all of a sudden, his body felt incredibly weak. The bone elephant's attack was so powerful, it had drained his entire body of its energy. If Han Sen had not learned Jade Sun Force and Long Live, which worked to keep generating more and more, he might have collapsed on the spot. Sea Wind's spear skills were masterful. If he was able to spar and practice with him a few more times, Han Sen imagined he'd be able to modify Toxic Dragon Drill a great deal. Huey Haifeng accepted Han Sen's friend request. He sent a message, asking what was that skill called. Han Sen contemplated his answer for a minute, and then replied, Elephant Rex Strike. Han Sen wasn't very talented when it came to naming things. For this name, he used the most basic of naming rules. He took one word from each component of the skill, one word from the Flaming Rex Spike and one word from the Bone Elephant, whose power he had simulated. That was a very good Elephant Rex Strike. It really does have the power of an elephant in T-Rex. As Han Sen exited the virtual camp, his communicator rang. It was a strange number that was dialing him, one which made him furrow his eyebrows. It was a communicator given to him by the military. Ordinary people could not call it, so whoever was calling him had to be from the inside. He accepted the call and the image displayed gave Han Sen a shock. It was Lai Zinglun. Why are you looking at me with such surprise? I am a high-level hacker, and breaking your defensive systems is easy peasy lemon squeezy. Finding your information was effortless, Lai Zinglun said, with a smug expression. Then you should know that these calls are monitored. Yes, Han Sen responded, with a wry smile. If that concerned me, what kind of hacker would I be? Don't worry, no one can see us talking. No one will even know you were on your communicator, Lai Zinglun said, with much confidence. You can look for me in the shelter, so why are you going to such lengths just to talk with me? Han Sen believed that if you kept your nose out of trouble, then no trouble would come to you. Illegal deeds were never wholly invisible, and there was always a trace that could be followed up on. Lai Xinglan had never seen a better hacker. Therefore, he believed himself to be the best. I'm contacting you because it's an emergency. You haven't been in the shelter for the past few days, so this was the only way I was able to get in touch with you, Lai Xinglan explained. I heard you have created a team to hunt down super creatures, and I would like to join. I know where one can be found, Lai Xinglan said. When Han Sen returned to the shelter, he heard about what happened with Lu Hui and the Master in the North's cooperative assault against the Wolf King. It turned out that they failed and incurred great losses in their struggle. Word was, they gained the upper hand at first, and things were going relatively well until the sudden appearance of a legion of Pegasi. They arrived there and aided the wolves. The cooperative human armies were promptly wrecked, which forced them to retreat. At the end of the day, it was a loss. Han Sen sighed, as he had personally witnessed the capabilities of the Wolf King and Pegasi King. The giant frosty bear lived against the ice sea. Along the coast, one particular part of the sea had wholly frozen over, and that was where the giant frosty bear tended to reside. When they arrived at the area they sought, it wasn't long before they found a sacred blood creature. They spotted it from afar, and it was a big white bird that just stood in one place, cleaning its feathers with its tongue. It looked like a red-crowned crane, but all the creatures around avoided it. They knew that the red-crowned crane was not something to be trifled with. There is no point in sharing such a creature, so how about a little wager? Whoever slays the bird first gets to keep the meat, Wang Yuheng suggested. Sure, that's fine by me. Han Sen smiled at Wang Yuheng. Han Sen's little uncle may have had terrible luck, but he enjoyed a good gambit. It was strange, however, for Han Sen had never seen him win. I'm okay with that, too. Lai Xinglan wanted a part of the fun, as well. He had only just recently unlocked his gene lock, so he was keen to flex his newfound muscles. The three of them then stood in a line. After that, Wang Yuheng counted to 3. After the count was up, Wang Yuheng and Lai Xinglan were the only two that started running towards the bird. In Lai Xinglan's eyes, it looked as if the galaxy was spinning. He accelerated at what seemed faster than the speed of light, racing towards the red-crowned crane. Wang Yuheng was no slouch, either. He shouted and a light burst forth from within him. As this happened, his speed increased and he managed to catch up and trail right behind Lai Xinglan. Like two meteors, they both skated across the ice in a great hurry. Han Sen slowly brought out the peacock crossbow that had just recently evolved. From the quiver, he loaded in a raven feather bolt. With a quick look at the crane, he raised his arms and pulled the trigger. Whoosh! The blacklight bolt flashed and traveled 1,000 meters in the blink of an eye. It shot right past Lai Xinglan and Wang Yuheng and lodged itself in the crane's cranium. Sacred blood creature hunted, snowbird. The beast's soul was not acquired. Consume its flesh to obtain a random numeric amount of sacred genopoints, ranging from 0 to 10. The familiar notification tone rang in Han Sen's head. He started laughing as he caught up to Lai Xinglan and Wang Yuheng and told them, "Thank you very much. Holy sugar, you cheated. How can you use such an obscene weapon and think it was fair?" Lai Xinglan and Wang Yuheng said, exactly at the same time. There was no rule forbidding certain weaponry. You said anything goes. Even you two could have used a crossbow, if you wanted to, Han Sen said boisterously, as he packed the snowbird's body into his backpack. He'd sort it out when he had a break. I was thinking of using mine, but I didn't think it was strong enough. Where'd you get your crossbow? How can a weapon like that possess such monstrous strength? Wang Yuheng asked, observing Han Sen. When they hunted the fire-scale T-Rex, Wang Yuheng got a glimpse of the peacock crossbow there for the first time. He had always meant to ask more about it. He knew it was a powerful weapon, but he never expected it to be that powerful. To kill a sacred blood creature from 1,000 meters away was a frightening thing. Han Sen then thought to himself, of course it's powerful, a berserk super creature crossbow and super bolt tends to pack a punch. If it couldn't kill a sacred blood creature with a headshot, I'd just use this thing as firewood. Are you sure this is the place? Why have we not yet seen the giant frosty bear? Han Sen and his crew spent half the day searching but did not see nor hear anything that suggested the local presence of a super creature bear. With suspicion, Wang Yuheng had to ask Lai Xinglan about his intel. Just as he was going to speak, there were splashes from beneath the ice. A giant white creature had been swimming, and it was now returning to the surface with a 1-meter-long fish in its mouth. The giant frosty bear was 2 meters away from Wang Yuheng when their eyes met. The man and the bear stared at each other for 3 seconds. Then, Wang Yuheng screamed, turned, and started running away. The giant white bear heaved itself out the water, and with the big fish still in its mouth, gave chase to the running man. It ignored Han Sen and Lai Zinglan completely. That little uncle can really. Lai Zinglan was motionless as he watched the scene. Those words were the only few he could conjure. Han Sen had already summoned his peacock crossbow and loaded it with 7 raven bolts. Without delay, he was hot on the creature's heels. Wang Yuheng continued to scream aloud as he ran, and in the midst of his frightened flight, managed to plead, "What are you guys doing? Help me. If you don't, I'll be the bear's next ice lolly." The 8-meter-tall white bear occasionally jumped as it chased after Wang Yuheng, trying to pounce on him. Whenever it hopped, 1-foot-thick paw-shaped craters were left behind in the ice that separated those on top and the freezing waters below. Shards and chips of ice were cast about 10 meters after each paw returned to the pulverized ice. The chips of ice pelleted Wang Yuheng a few times, which caused him to shiver. His face was drawn of color and a white, frosty webbing formed on his skin. His situation looked dire, and you could see his joints stiffen and slow as he went on. With Wang Yuheng getting dangerously close to being pummeled by the wrathful bear, Han Sen could wait no longer. Although he could not aim at the bear's weak spot, he fired a bolt at it to aid Wang Yuheng. The bolt feather traveled 40 meters and struck the bear's leg. The tip of the bolt managed to get lodged inside, which surprised Han Sen. He had already assumed the pelt and hide of the bear was really thick, and despite firing the bolt to just strike anywhere, the fact that the bolt managed to pierce the creature was a testament to the crossbow's new strength. Its evolution was a worthy investment, and it was most certainly capable of slaying super creatures. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.